Welcome to our PBS NewsHour special live coverage of President Trump's first State of the Union address. I'm Judy Woodruff. Mr. Trump is said to want to strike some bipartisan notes before a Congress and a nation deeply divided. He will refer to building a safe, strong, and proud America, touting his economic record. The future of an immigration deal and the fate of so-called dreamers face a looming deadline. Some members of Congress have invited undocumented immigrants to be their guests for tonight's speech. Our Lisa Desjardins is there at the Capitol, and our Yamiche Alcindor is at the White House. And here with me in our studio at the table tonight, syndicated columnist Mark Shields and New York Times columnist David Brooks. The Cook Political Report's Amy Walter is here, along with the chair of the American Conservative Union, Matt Schlapp, and Karine Jean-Pierre. She's a senior advisor to MoveOn.org. Welcome to all of you as we keep one eye, or both eyes, I should say, on what's going on in the Capitol, in the House chamber, where the president is about to come in. Mark Shields, it's the president's first State of the Union. He's been in office for a year. What are we looking for tonight?
We're looking for the president to be presidential, which he said nobody could be presidential like he is. This is a ceremony of state. I mean, this is something that Donald Trump is totally unfamiliar with, never having been in the Congress, been a person in Washington. So it will be interesting to see how he fits into this, what Americans have come to expect about really this major ceremony in national life.
David, what are you looking for?
Well, it's been 1 year of Trump, which is 37 human years converted into our lifestyle. And I'm looking, he does these reasonably well. He brings his uptown Trump when he does these things. The id gets put away. And I expect he'll be reasonably presidential. I guess I'm looking for actual policies. I mean, he does actually have a policy process in the White House, and we know he'll talk about immigration. But that's not going to fill a year. And so how's he going to fill the rest of the year? And so most of these addresses are famously laundry lists of policies. And it would be interesting, actually, if he could have a laundry list. I'd be curious to know what's on that beyond immigration and some vague jab at infrastructure.
Well, Amy, we don't know if it's uptown or downtown Donald Trump that we're going to see tonight. But from an American's perspective, and you've been looking at a lot of polls, thinking about what the voters are thinking right now, what do you think they're looking for tonight?
Well, the president can come in with a laundry list, as David said, of things that they've actually gotten done. He has a good economy behind him. A lot of the things he talked about in his first, it wasn't the State of the Union, but address to Congress, he's been able to accomplish, whether it's on immigration crossing the border, right, the lowest number of border crossing arrests that we've had in years, regulations being cut. And yet he also comes in as the most unpopular president at this point in a first term. And he making that connection between how he can be successful on the one hand and still be seen so negatively by majority of Americans, it's really all about him. It's the personality, it's not the policies that is driving perceptions of him, and it's likely to drive the 2018 election as well.
Matt Schlapp, does the president carry a special burden with him tonight, more than most presidents would?
I really don't think so. I think if the president was going to govern like most politicians, try to find a way to use language at these big events where, you know, they kind of soften their image, look for that soft, reassuring language. He just doesn't do that. I think David's right. I think he's going to sound presidential. It's going to be a presidential speech. But look, he is who he is. He's governing the way he's comfortable with governing. He believes at the end of the day it's the results that will indicate whether or not he's a successful politician. Is the economy growing? Did we defeat ISIS? Do people feel greater security? That's kind of where he's putting his trust in the American people, if they'll like the results.
Karine Jean-Pierre, what about that? I mean, he very well probably is counting to a large degree on people looking at results.
Right. That's exactly right. Look, I have to tell you, I hate the word presidential now. I just can't stand it, because that it doesn't matter. This night actually, to me, doesn't matter at all, because he's going to probably stay on the teleprompter, but we know who Trump really is once he's off the teleprompter. It doesn't, maybe the presidential kind of sense of Trump will stay for more than an hour, maybe more than a day, but we know exactly who he is.
Here is the president. They are announcing him now. This is the tradition, this is the ritual, Mark Shields. This is the way it's been done for president after president.
Since Harry Truman. 1947, when it went on television for the first time, and members realized that they could also appear next to the president in living rooms all over America.
And David, he makes his way down the aisle. Again, we've seen this scene so many times before. It's usually the members of the president's own party who get the closest. It's interesting to see if any Democrats are going to be reaching out to shake his hand.
If I were a good reporter, I would have been there at 5 p.m., which was when they used to start hoarding around the aisle seats to get into this shot. He's still a good bonus for a lot of people in a lot of seats, so they probably had a little of that, probably a little less than past presidents.
Amy, we're watching. Mark.
I just wanted to disagree with David early in the evening, and that is, it makes no difference what the president proposes. The only time it's made a difference what the president proposed was 1965, when Lyndon Johnson proposed Medicare, Medicaid, voting rights, and really changed America and federal aid to education. That he had 290 Democrats in the House and 68 in the Senate. Donald Trump doesn't have a governing legislative majority or coalition at this point. So he could propose joining the League of Nations, blowing up the League of
Mark is
Nations.
completely wrong about that.
Yeah, I'd like to tape that answer and keep playing it back when people say, why isn't he getting everything through the Senate? Because you're right.
Well, no, it matters tremendously to within the administration, because the State of the Union is the marching orders for people within the administration. It's a great organizing document.
Right.
It's a great document to get listed in.
And while we discuss what he is or isn't going to get done, the president is making his way down the center aisle in the House of Representatives. We are catching a glimpse now and then of the First Lady Melania Trump up in the balcony area with a number of guests who are the guests of the president and the First Lady tonight. We're going to be hearing about them in a minute, but right now the president is shaking hands. We see the House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, and now we're beginning to see the Pentagon, officials from the Pentagon, members of the president's cabinet. The president seems to be moving briskly at this point.
Yeah, he really does look like he's moving pretty
to be able to get this done.
To get it done, make the speech, stay on teleprompter.
Amy, we just here we go. Let's listen to this just a second.
Welcome.
Shaking hands with, of course, his own vice president and with House Speaker Paul Ryan, and he is getting right to it. I think it took him just a couple of minutes to get to the lectern, and he's about to speak. The President of the United States. This is where he gives each of them a copy of the speech.
Not everybody is standing.
No. And let it be known that Matt Schlapp was the one who said that. We always look to see whether members of the other party stand, applaud, and so forth. And right now, and we'll be talking about this later in the evening, different people tonight wearing different colors, symbolic of different issues and making different points.
And you have boycotts, too. Democrats who have boycotted.
That's right. I think there are 13 Democrats that we know of who have said they are not going tonight. I think 8 of them are members of the Congressional Black Caucus.
That's right.
But there are a handful of others as well. But right now, the applause sustains, and that is typical for most presidents. Most members of Congress, most states of State of the Union addresses accord the president the respect.
Yes.
Schlapp, does the president carry a special burden with him tonight, more than most presidents would?
I really don't think so. I think if the president was going to govern like most politicians, try to find a way to use language at these big events where, they kind of soften their image, look for that soft, reassuring language. He just doesn't do that. I think David's right. I think he's going to sound presidential. It's going to be a presidential speech, but look, he is who he is. He's governing the way he's comfortable with governing. He believes at the end of the day, it's the results that will indicate whether or not he's a successful politician. Is the economy growing? Did we defeat ISIS? Do people feel greater security? That's kind of where he's putting his trust in the American people, that they'll like the results.
A very big trade deal.
Matt Schlapp, what about the tone? What about what Amy said about the tone of this speech not being
well, Amy wanted a longer speech because she wanted more details. I think it was a plenty long speech, and I think the policy covered is bare. we kind of touched everything. And the tone, I completely disagree respectfully with David. I actually think these are American stories. These are stories that need to be told. You know, like Donald Trump or don't like Donald Trump, his election surprised a lot of people because he was talking to and connecting to people who aren't always listened to. And the stories of the people today were stories that we haven't all heard. Some of them really are uplifting stories, the stories of bravery, stories of cops, stories of soldiers, stories of people being decent, yes, and people having to, you know, experience death because of maybe bad policies. And I actually think weaving it together, Donald Trump built this speech on the plain stories of American people.